easy mode? This is a highly debated topic. This is something a lot of the journalists are always jumping on the bandwagon saying they need an easy mode in games. Dark Souls, Demon Souls, they're too hard. They need to be easier. They need to have a way for just regular people to beat these games. Carl, what do you think?
Okay, so I think that games like Dark Souls need an easy mode just to give people with beginner skill level like me, for example, a way to just enjoy them. And I'm sorry, but if the only thing that defines a game is the difficulty, it's not much of a game. I can play Fallout 3, for example, and I can enjoy the whole thing with the difficulty turned down as much as possible. And, well, there is another reason. Like streamers, for example, they want to play games like that. But, those kind of games require you to master them move for move. And so there are varying reasons to support my argument. And it just feels really cheap when they make the games that difficult.
Luke Skywalker seems to agree with you. He says, the only mode I play in is easy mode. I want to enjoy the story and enjoy the ride. I've torn up too many controllers when there wasn't an easy mode. Well, I'm going to have to disagree with both of you gentlemen. I think that video games do not need an easy mode. Now, obviously, if a developer wants to include an easy mode, I'm all for it. I'm always for artistic freedom, developer freedom, the choice to make their games however they want, as long as it falls within the laws of the country that the game is being, released in. But as far as needing an easy mode, I don't think so. I think that is the very definition of entitlement. I think people that want an easy mode, they want to beat the game. They feel like they bought the game, so they're entitled to see the ending of the game. And I 100% disagree with this notion. I think that you're focusing too much on the destination and not the journey. When I was younger, the whole neighborhood was playing Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We never beat the game. No one could figure out how to beat Judge Doom. We made it to Judge Doom, and for weeks and weeks we were just playing this game, always trying to beat it, never could beat it. And we had fun. There was fun to be had in the attempt, and the journey itself was fun. We didn't need to beat the game. We didn't feel like we lost something or we were owed something from the developers because we bought the game because we paid for it or we rented it or whatever. So I think this whole idea of an easy mode is because, obviously people are more entitled. They think that just because you bought something, you deserve to see the ending. They want to be part of the in crowd. They want to say they beat Demon Souls. They want to say they beat these hard games and be part of the cool kids club when, they can't. They're not. They're not that good. Ninja Kitty says, in the old days, games just included cheat codes. This is true.
I'd be okay with cheat codes.
Chuck says, easy mode is good. Lock some rewards behind hard.
If they're stupid rewards, no, like in Mortal Kombat, they lack a lot of the end aesthetic customizations behind difficulty levels, and I think it's stupid.
Arioka says, I'm okay with the option for easy mode, but video games without a challenge aren't fun to me. Exactly. If there's no challenge, what's the point of even playing the game? If you get to...
Why not? Instead of doing just okay, here's my compromise. Add an easy mode, but also add an even other degrees of difficulty modes. And that's the one thing I actually like about Diablo 3. It has like 13 difficulty levels, and they all affect varying parts of the game. So I would be okay with like a super easy mode, but also add the really brutal, the most brutal difficulty modes that they can come up with.
I don't know. Like I said, for me, I would prefer that the developers make a game that they want in the way they want to make it, whether it's hard or easy, whether it's tricky, whether you have to think about what you're doing or grind. I think we shouldn't be imposing onto developers how they need to make games. I think we should just let them make them the way
I
they want to make
mean,
them.
there is one other problem.
What's that, Carl?
Accessibility. See, a lot of these people, a lot of these developers put, like ways to use visual cues on defeating bosses. Well, some people can't see these visual cues. So by not including some kind of way to help players, they're basically saying they hate the disabled. Am I wrong?
I think you're slightly off base. I don't think they're saying that they hate the disabled so much as they weren't considering the disabled.
Okay, I'll look at Horizon Zero Dawn. That game is so anti-disabled gamer, it's not even funny. Even the way the game works, the scan system, the colors blend in, and there's no audio cues on quest tracking or the scan mechanism. It would be different if they added non-visual cues to help people get around the difficulty, but they don't do that stuff.
So it sounds like to me that you don't want so much in easy mode, more accessibility options.
I just want more. I want to be able to play the game, and they expect you to reach these platforms or do this or do that. Well, I can't do all that. I don't mind if the game is challenging. Just make it that I can get through it. That's one thing I can't. Huh?
Can you get through a physics book, Carl?
Wait a minute, I've never had physics.
If I handed you a physics book and I told you to start reading it, would you be able to get through
It
the
would
whole book?
It would really depend on the book, whether or not there was a large print version available.
Okay, what about a book in French, a French book? Would you be able to read?
I don't speak French, but I would consider learning.
So my point is, should we force people who make books to make them accessible to people who don't understand the subject matter?
But books are accessible, though. You got most, if not every book these days, at least the ones worth reading about, are in Braille. They have an audio version. They are on a PDF file.
Right. What I'm saying, though, Carl, is you could listen to an audiobook, right? But it doesn't mean that you understand what you heard. So should they be a version of a book that has all the words that are difficult dumbed down, everything explained, over-explained, any word that might be difficult, they pause and give you the definition of that word and explain it to you? No, right? Because that would be stupid. So why should a video game dumb itself down for the lowest common denominator so that person can defeat the game, ruining the experience for everyone else?
I'm not saying dumb it down. I mean, a lot. If they can make it, if they can make it possible for people to play the game, anyone, I'm all for that. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, the problem with no easy mode these games, have nothing else to offer. They can only offer the challenge, and once you get through that challenge, that's it. Nothing else. There's nothing else. No other reason to play the game. If, like Fallout 76, for example. You get to enjoy the story, no matter how crappy it is. Or BioShock. There's just.
But if the game's only incentive is how hard it is, if you're not interested in the story, so what do you care if you could play it or not?
I mean, I like role-playing games, and I like to look at the graphics and, some of the quests. It just depends, but hard games, they're nothing because they don't really offer anything else. They're a one-trick show.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If they're a one-trick show, why you take away their one trick, and why not just not play it?
Well, I think it's sad that's that game developers have that philosophy, though. That's what I'm saying.
Like 56K warning says, bullet hell shooters. Should a bullet hell shooter, should a like a 1942 Ikaruga, one of them games, should they have less bullets on screen so someone else can beat the game on an easier mode?
I mean, if they can make it possible to play the game without making it easier, I'm okay with that. I just want the games to be easier to play. I can't play, for example, The Outer Worlds because of the visual problems. And this is a game that they compare to New Vegas, and it just isn't, because New Vegas has the options like the flashlight or the VATS. I don't have the means to lock on. There's no aim assist or anything like that for me. It's for people who can see to play the games, and that's not fair.
Well, I think that's a different conversation. I think obviously accessibility options, giving you audio clues, taking away the visual clues, giving you something, making a trade-off between one for the other.
I just want to play the game. If they want to make, I'm a proponent for easy mode and everything, but I can be okay without it as long as I can play the game. That's all I've wanted. And it feels like people like me are being left out on purpose.
I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I think they're just, like I said, I think they don't consider it. I know a gentleman I talk to frequently, Blind Ryan, he is really big into accessibility. He's always trying to get the developers to add different options and modes in games because he is a visually impaired gamer.
It just bothers me that I waste money on these games, and the problem is there's no way to get my money back, especially on digital.
Well,
so
I was going to say maybe an accessibility warning, or if you are unable to.
It'd be nice if they actually did that. I'd be okay with that. But instead, I have to find out for myself. Oops, I've just spent $60 and I can't play the game.
Yeah, that is a real crappy feeling when you pay a bunch of money and then you can't even use the game.
OCG was here before.
Yeah, I popped him out. He wasn't saying nothing. I think he just logged in, but he did not get his mic and everything set up.
And I'm just saying that, like, it sucks that I can't play these games because they're not made for me. That's what I like.
I was gonna say Chuck says that we should have accessibility certified games. I think that's an opportunity right there. Yeah, he agrees.
Yeah, I agree with that. The accessibility laws should really apply to video games.
Yeah, they really
and I'm
should.
not saying make them easier. Like I said, as much as I am, in favor of the easy mode, if they can make the game easier to play, like Hollow Knight, for example. I found the platforming excruciating in that game just because it's hard for me to gauge distance. And because a lot of the stuff is like the platforms are sometimes hidden by the background and the foreground and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I've never played Hollow Knight. Carl, you sometimes you trail off on your thoughts, and it throws me for a loop.
Sorry about that.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, there you are.
So
what do you think about this topic?
So accessibility, I was thinking about that, and it kind of brings me back to Streets of Rage. And I always, as a kid, thought I was a little bummed in games like that where you got a better ending when you played on hard. And I understand that a lot of guys like that. I guess it depends on the game and what you're going after. I mean, to be honest, as long as it's there, it's an option. Some guys just want to bet. There are better players. You got to understand that there are people who play through games a lot better than you might, and they might need that extra difficulty. Now, on a game like Streets, it just goes from like hard to insane, right? I mean, you get guys coming from everywhere. But I mean, after playing for how long has it been out now? Over 20 years, 25 years. I'm pretty good at Streets of Rage, so I can pull off those weird kind of combo moves, and I understand how to use the power in the right way so that you're not draining yourself and that you're conserving and that you're not taking extra hits. But I do, I'm kind of in the middle on it. I see it on both sides, but there, at least if it's an option, at least it's there. It could just be normal and just be regular. But I think even if it doesn't offer anything, if it's there, it's a nice bonus.
Yeah, like I said, I think that it should really be up to the developers. I don't think we should force them to make easy modes. I also agree with the whole idea that if you play on easy mode, if it's an option in the game, you should get the full ending. They shouldn't fuck with you and tell you to go back and play it on a harder difficulty. That's really dumb. It's bad design. It kind of pisses me off a little.
Oh yeah, awful tacky.
Well, I think it started a lot too with like at the beginning of like Xbox 360. It seemed like a lot of these games had multiple endings, and it was a little too much. Because at the end of the day, I like that when that was current, I liked that. I don't play too much into like PS4, Xbox One. I only had a handful of games for my Xbox One. So at the end of the day, I am kind of pretty much a retro gamer. But that kind of stuff started around that era.
You must not play a lot of Square RPGs like Chrono Trigger or.
I mean, I did. I have a lot of the good classics and stuff that the good JRPGs for things like DS, 3DS, stuff like that. But I've kind of like cut back, and I've been more of a handheld gamer probably in the last 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the bottom line? General consensus: easy mode in games. Do we need them, Carl?
Not necessarily, as long as you make it possible for everyone to get through the game as you intend it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Even the disabled people. Like if there are like Dark Souls 4, if there are cues in there should be audio and visual cues. There needs to be better accessibility options in games. And those accessibility rules, at least in America, I don't know how they are for other countries, should really apply to game design. It's just, I mean, even in the theater, there are listening devices you can use, and they have closed caption tech and stuff like that. So even if you can't see, you can still enjoy the movie.
Yeah, I know.
That's a good point.
On some of the adult sites, they have the closed captioning on your pornos. So, even
why the hell do you need that? Oh, okay. No, I can see that. I can see the benefit in that.
Yeah,
But,
what did he say just before the money shot?
you got to get all that prime dialogue in there. So, bottom line, Gary, what do you think? Should easy mode be a necessity with games, or?
I think it should. I think it should. Like Carl said, I don't think anything should be. It should just be a like a toggle. That's it. I think like if I got the little guy coming in and he wants to play some Streets of Rage, I'll probably put it down a notch just so me and him can he can survive a little bit longer. So there's different situations, and like I said, I'm in the middle. As long as they don't hinder the design of the game, because I think that should come first. That's what's most important.
And I think difficult games like the Souls games, I think they need more depth. Being like I said, being defined by your difficulty, you got a lot of serious problems if that's your focus.
Yeah, I know the Dark Souls games. They got some kind of overall story going on. I've never really got.
They say they do, but you never hear you barely ever hear about anyone talk about the story.
Yeah, they just talk about the difficulty, and I never got into Dark Souls too much, but it seemed like a slower paced game. It was one of those games where you had to really methodically think out of your attacks. You couldn't just go in and expect, even being careful, you couldn't expect to just beat some of those bosses. And
you don't have the time to do that sometimes.
Right.
It's like the one wrong move, and I'm just saying that we need more depth to these games.
And that's part of I think Dark Souls' design is die, and I mean like old NES games. It was die, figure out what you did wrong, and go back at it again. That's basically what I get from Dark Souls.
Now, there's one Metroidvania roguelike called Sundered. And it is hard. But what they do is you gather money and you basically use it to upgrade your abilities. Probably better than what Hades does with that sort of thing, but that's another story altogether.
56K Warning says the Souls games are pattern-based gameplay.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
I think they a lot of the old NES games, the old Atari games, they're all based on arcade machines. The idea of trying to get people to feed quarters into
quarter munchers. Yep.
So I think that we should kind of take them off the table as far as the discussion goes, because a lot of those games, like I said, the difficulty was done purposefully to get you to spend more money.
Which is ironic that they brought this concept over, but yeah, let's just move on.
Yeah, I think NES does like it's supposed to emulate that feeling of the arcade, but they did tone it back. I mean, there are games that are hard, and people will argue to the death that Battletoads is not a great game. I will tell you that it might be hard, but it's still a fantastic game. I know there's a lot of bugs, but even in today's games, I mean, look at the bugs that come out. They patch them months and after release. So
okay, to the point of Battletoads, I mean, there are ways you can skip certain levels if you wanted to.
Right. Yep.
So it's not, granted, it's hard, but You can skip some of that though.
Well, you get to that underwater level, and it is pretty like it's broken. It's broken, but it's still like I still think a broken game, as long as it's not broken to the point where you can't beat it. And there obviously there are people nowadays that are beating it easier than they did when it was people were playing it in the 90s. I think for sure that as long as it's not broken, then you can have your fun out of that game, and if it's not too bad, so.
Yeah, like Chuck says, it says Battletoads is hard AF, but who can say they didn't have fun playing it back in the day? I remember playing that game back in the day. Always fun, always a good time had. Couch co-op. But I mean, it was hard. But like I said, if we beat the game, had we have beaten Battletoads, for example, right? If there was an easy mode, that would have been it. We would have stopped playing it.
Yeah, right. Would it have been as memorable?
I don't know about that. I don't know, because as I recall hearing, there was something with the way they designed it. As I recall, I think they actually made it hard, the North American version harder.
Ooh.
I recall hearing something to do with the way the difficulty worked in Battletoads. And it's bugging me that I don't know what it is, but it's like something to do with the difficulty. Like, I think they made it harder here or something to that effect. Which, I don't know, it kind of counters the argument, but, I don't know. Don't know. I never played it myself, so.
Yeah, I played it plenty. Like I said, it was a fun game. It was hard. And I think that, like OCG says, if it was easy, it wouldn't have been memorable. No one would even be talking about it to this day. It would have just been something, a flash in the pan.
I mean, look at Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden did the same thing. It frustrated gamers, and it's talked about.
That
game did the same thing.
That game was hard on purpose.
But it's still fun. I mean, when you still have a soundtrack that's absolutely amazing, you have sprite work that's just really good, animation that's really good. You just know. That's why, and I'm not going to get too much into what we were probably going to be talking about, but when you look at things, that's why after being a gamer for so long, I can look at stuff and I just know. I don't have to play the game to watch a good minute segment of that game to know if it's for me and whether or not it's quality.
I will say one thing. There's a game that kind of Axiom Verge. Now, Axiom Verge had what I like to call as a smart difficulty. It wasn't hard, but it was just depends on how you approached it. And
what kind of game is it, Carl? The shooter?
It's a Metroidvania. And the thing was, what really made it easier for me to see was that it was a sprite based, like the old style. I mean, it's challenging. I think you'd enjoy it. The different regions of the map are color coded. I think you'd probably enjoy it. It's not too pricey on the PlayStation Store.
All right, I want to get to Luke Skywalker's point here. He said, most games that we played back in the day, like Battletoads, we played the crap out of them because we didn't have the number of games like we have now to play through. I think this is an excellent point. I mean, if the game we had more options back in the day, if there was cheaper games, we probably wouldn't have played those hard games. We probably would have just moved on anyway. So I mean,
that's a valid point. I agree with that.
So I guess if the games are hard nowadays, with all the options we have, people are just going to stop playing them, and we'll just start playing easier games, and then it'll kind of the market will correct itself, if you will.
And I think you gotta remember too that kids today are impatient. They have a lot of technology in front of them. We grew like Luke's who said that we grew up with this stuff, so we're a different breed.
Patient, but that probably has to do with my ADD. So I don't know. It is a good point, though.
Another point. Arioka says the reason why some Japanese games were made harder for the North American market is because you could rent a game and beat it on a weekend in the U.S. while you couldn't rent games in Japan. So I mean.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
So I could definitely understand how some developers, maybe Nintendo, probably Sega, they were putting a little pressure to make the games harder, knowing that people would rent them and beat them and then never buy them. Whereas if they were hard, they might entice somebody to go ahead and buy it.
There you go.
Renting it wouldn't last long enough.
Mm-hmm.
I do think I've heard that somewhere before.
I agree with that. Then that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
So I think we're all in agreement on this that it would be nice to have easy modes on games, not necessarily needed. We need some more accessibility options for the semi-blind.
I think I can handle. Okay, so on the difficulty modes, just make them a smart difficulty instead of less pattern based. Something that where there are more approachable options. How about that? You're not making the game easier. You're just making it more approachable. The more approachable.
Didn't Borderlands have something like that? Borderlands 2 introduced like a
Borderlands is
difficulty, or at least that was what they were saying before the game launched.
Well, Borderlands is not hard I mean, you'll die from it a lot.
I mean, yeah, and that that's a given. I mean, I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's going to reset you back.
They never had a difficulty selector. You just played the game and got through it, and that you get the True Hunter
Vault mode or the Vault Hunter modes, and I mean, there's some different modes. It ramps up, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. It's that was pretty good on the difficulty, I admit. I had a good time, and I died a lot, but I was able to get through. This stuff that I got through. It worked out.
Yeah, Ninja Kitty brings up a good point on Mega Man 2, and that's probably my favorite series of all time. Definitely, he's definitely right about that.
It's everyone's favorite game.
Well, was Mega Man 2 actually easier in the US? Because now I feel not as accomplished for having beaten the game.
I mean, it's definitely not difficult to me now, but it's hard to answer that question. I definitely
once you well, I was thinking the thing about Mega Man is once you understood the order, I guess it's not hard for you. I never played them, but I understand how it works to some degree. So,
Ninja Kitty says it's the same reason why Mario Lost Levels was never released in North America. I mean, it was eventually released as Super Mario Lost Levels. We do all know that the original Super Mario Brothers 2
Doki Doki Panic.
It was said to be too hard, so they did change a game, reskin Doki Doki Panic into a Mario game. They gave us the exclusive Super Mario Brothers 2 for North America.
Hey, for your information, I like that they made that Super Mario Brothers game based on the Mario Brothers Super Show.
2 was a good thing that happened. I absolutely love 2. 2 is
2 is a great game. I love 2.
I don't know if it's better than 3. I think 3 pretty much introduced the overworld
I still remember
maps,
the
and that was
Birdo.
amazing. But
I still remember the Birdo boss fight, and that was cool.
It was definitely different.
It was fantastic, the way it was. I mean, just how it goes.
And in the Super Mario Brothers 2 for North America, we had the first transgender video game character. So there is that.
I mean, I'm not going to discuss gender identity and politics. So,
well, it wasn't really politics back in the day. If you read the description of Birdo in the booklet, it says he's a he, but likes to be referred to as a she.
Oh yeah. Well.
And does Birdo have a bow?
Yeah.
Kind of. Okay.
Does Birdo sue you if you misgender it or misgender?
I don't think video game characters can sue you, so I'm gonna go with no.
Sorry, sir. Just
Ninja Kitty says that Ninja Kitty says Mega Man 2 is easier in the US. 100%. They made the bosses take half of the hits, and the health drops were way more frequent. Well, Now I feel shitty for having
there you
beat it.
go.
Yeah, I need to get the Famicom version now.
There you go. I mean, that's still there's a case for games being easier. People still remember it as as fondly as they do.
Karaoke's countering with Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3, Streets of Rage 3, and Contra Hardcore were all harder in the US version. So I guess we got some harder games. We got some easier games.
And then they corrected the Ninja Gaiden. They added password system in the Super Nintendo, the trilogy, I think.
I believe so. I was never really a big Ninja Gaiden fan.
Me either.
Ren of Heaven says, I play most games on easy mode. I don't have time to get stuck on games.
I mean, I'll get stuck on games, be they hard or easy. So,
well, I'll tell you what. I've been playing a lot of. Well, not recently. The last few months have been like different games, but a couple months ago I was playing Atomic Crops, and that's another roguelike, and that's a fantastic example of okay, you can beat the game on your initial run, but here we go. We're going to go into can you beat it with amped up, enemies are doing slightly more damage. You're getting slightly less stuff. And they keep ramping up every time you beat it. So right now, I think currently I've beaten it maybe 3 times, and it just gets insane. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Atomic Crops, but it's a fantastic game.
I've seen the game. I've never played it. I think that would be a good option. Maybe starting off the game on easy. As you beat it, every time you beat it, it ramps up the difficulty. I could see that being something that, might be acceptable to everybody. That way everyone can go through it the first time, beat it, and then those who want a challenge will be like, hey, I beat it 16 times in a row, or I'm on my 30th playthrough.
Like a prestige option, yep.
Yeah. Seems that we lost Carl in the middle of this discussion. There might be we might need a easy mode on StreamYards so that way Carl can have an easier time of doing this. I think we're going to move on from this subject. We're going to go ahead and go into the next thing.